2. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RGVSports.com podcast. I am your host. My name is Jon LaFollette, and I cover high school sports for the Monitor in McAllen, Texas, and for RGVSports.com for the world at large. If you're listening to this, you already know what it is, folks. It's the recap podcast show for the RGV Week 8. We are the 2-point conversion to the week of football it was. We are the extra point to the week that was. I'm trying to think of another analogy here. You got a better one? Greg?
No, you've already nailed it. There's no need to start trying new stuff. We're in week 8.
All right, that's true. That's true. At this point, the teams are who they are, and the Periscope podcast show is what it is. There's no, at this point, we watched all the film you can, did all the scouting reports.
We don't have to throw in any new wrinkles.
Yeah, at some point, the wrinkles are what the wrinkles are.
Maybe next spring.
Maybe next spring during spring ball, we can work on some stuff. But if you're a frequent listener or viewer of this show, you already know who this is. Greg Luca, he covers 36A. I cover 31-6A. And normally Mario is here for this on Periscope duty, but in the back, we got Saul Barrios-Thomas doing Periscope duty. He's our page designer here for us at the Monitor. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good.
I'm not ruling out a Mario guest appearance later.
Mario might make a guest appearance. He's done one of those before, and his eyes were a little red.
He was tired. It was a long day.
He was tired. It was a long day. He may or may not have had concern.
Hey, he was tired. It was a long day.
I'm teasing. Anyways, enough about the what am I trying to say here? Not illustrious, the non-illustrious things? I don't know. Anyways, let's talk about football instead of what Mario does in his free time. So we got plenty of big games. We got 3 weeks left until the playoffs start. At this point, we're entering the home stretch for the season. But we got a lot of big games. First, let's begin with the games in 32-6A. This is not our coverage area.
I think those were the big ones.
Yeah, these were the big ones. These games were not in our coverage area. For us at the Monitor, our coverage area goes from Roma to Mercedes, but nonetheless, we do keep tabs on these teams because these are some very good teams out in 32-6A. But let's begin with what we thought was probably the game of the weak for the Valley at large. It was Harlingen versus Los Fresnos.
Right.
Harlingen comes in having lost their first game to a Valley team this year, which was to San Benito, right? Yeah, San Benito beat them.
Yeah.
Los Fresnos comes in this game undefeated, but it's Harlingen who gets the win. They don't lose back-to-back games. They get the win here, 25-18. Leo Tienda had a big night for them, as did their quarterback, Jesse Castro. You've seen Harlingen play. I've seen Harlingen play. We both know what this team can do. And, we gave Los Fresnos the benefit of the doubt because their defense has been so strong this season. And Harlingen puts up 25 points, which is impressive because Los Fresnos held San Benito to 7 at one point this season. San Benito can score, as we'll talk about here in a second. Big thing for Los Fresnos in this, they turned the ball over 5 times. Despite outgaining Harlingen in this game, they turned the ball over 5 times. So that they don't do themselves any favor in those regards. But how do you when you look at the stats, look at the box score here, how do you see this game working out here, Greg?
Yeah, I think we talked about if Los Fresnos would be able to match up with Harlingen High as athletes on offense. That's the thing that really jumped out to me about Harlingen High, is their just speed, quickness, and athleticism all over the field on offense, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's the running back, and even the receivers. And you look at the stats, and in their passing game, they only averaged maybe 3.5 yards per attempt, something like that. But they really got some success on the ground. They ran 39 times for 256 yards. And you saw that Jesse Castro and Leo Tienda were both over 100 in the game. Mm-hmm. So that's their read option game, and that's their different attacking ways on the ground with 2 different athletic guys who can bring some of the same things, but from different angles. Probably just gashing Los Fresnos at times and being able to create some games in that way. And I think that must have been the difference in this one when you just look at it from a pure numbers perspective.
Right. And like I said, we've both seen Harlingen play. We both know what this team can do. And, once again, for a second straight week, our top 10's kind of in flux now because Harlingen took a tumble. Los Fresnos was up there. Now you've got kind of like this weird kind of 3-way tie. San Benito beats Harlingen. Harlingen beats Los Fresnos. Los Fresnos beats San Benito. It's like rock, paper, scissors. They've all got games on each other.
Right.
So at this point, it's going to be interesting to see how the top 10 looks next week when all this is kind of settled. Anything else you want to talk about this game before we move on to anything else?
Well, it also looks like from the stats that Los Fresnos outgained Harlingen in the game, but turned the ball over 5 times.
Yeah.
That's usually going to cost you.
Yep, and Harlingen only had a turnover, just a turnover, though. But yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors for turning the ball over 5 times, even if you do gain over 400 yards of offense, which Harlingen did in this game. Los Fresnos did.
It would appear 3 lost fumbles, which can be especially unlucky. You never know who's going to fall on the ball once it gets out there. So.
Right.
That if those plays turned out to cost them, that's something that's unfortunate that it's going to ruin an undefeated season, but speaks to that this team is still talented and has a lot going forward.
Right. There's only 3 weeks left in the regular season, and this district is still wide open. Like I said, those 3 teams, Harlingen, Los Fresnos, and San Benito, they've all got games on each other. It's going to be interesting to see how things pan out here. Maybe a team gets tripped up on a spoiler. Maybe Rivera pulls a win out of the hat here, I should say.
Out of the hat, yeah.
Out of their hat, I should say.
Right.
So, anything else from this game? We'll talk about San Benito real quick.
Yeah, and let's move on to that one.
All right, San Benito plays Brownsville Vets. We all pick San Benito to win this one, and this goes back to something we talked about on the 6A podcast. Brownsville Vets comes into this game undefeated, still ranked lower than San Benito in the standings, who's lost 2 games. And you made up a good point. At this point last year, Brownsville Vets was undefeated, but then they played Harlingen, San Benito, and Los Fresnos, and they lost all those games.
Right.
So it seems like they have a ways to go to be where they want to be with the rest of these teams in this district. But this was a close game. Brownsville loses 40-21, but at one point in the first quarter, Brownsville Vets is up 14-7. This was a close game going into the fourth quarter, but San Benito in the fourth quarter scored 21 points, and 3 of those touchdowns all came on plays of 60 yards or more. It was just one big play after another for San Benito there, and that's what was the difference maker here. It seems like Brownsville's defense just couldn't contain San Benito for 4 quarters, and that was a difference maker. When you look at the stats, what do you see for this one?
Right. Well, first of all, big picture for Brownsville veterans. They're obviously not out of it now, just having their first loss in the district, but they do have tough games coming up against Harlingen and Los Fresnos.
Which are at home, it should be noted. Home field advantage is a thing. So.
Right. When we talk about San Benito, they can beat you both ways. They can beat you through the air, or they can beat you on the ground. And I think in this game, looking at 345 rushing yards, you're seeing that kind of like we just talked about with Harlingen. They have different options that can really exploit you in that way. And it seems like they just found a way to do it in this one. It seems like Jon R really carried the load. Their quarterback had 234 yards rushing. So that's certainly a big night, and he did it on just 15 carries. He was really impressive to me when I got to see them play, just what he can do with his speed and smarts and knowing where to run the ball and being able to make people miss and doing everything that you want in a runner. And in this game also, I want to see what he did passing. He was 14 of 22 for 120 yards. So not the huge numbers, but that's efficient, and that keeps defenses honest. So just enough to keep Brownsville Vets in a real bind here. And we talked about whether Marcus Castillo would be able to play for Brownsville Vets. Looks like he was able to go in this game. Only ran the ball for 0 yards, so that's not what you're looking for, but had a decent game passing, 18 of 29 for 211 yards, but was intercepted 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
So hard to say. Maybe he wasn't at 100%. I don't know. I didn't get to see this game myself, but that's just something that jumps out to me when I look at the stats, is they need him to be almost perfect if they're going to win this game.
Right, and you mentioned the 3 turnovers, at least for Brownsville Vets quarterback Marcus Castillo. Brownsville had 4 turnovers on the game. And, again, we weren't there, but who's to say that, some of those turnovers don't lead to those big plays, which I mentioned. J.R. Garton went off. I mean, in the fourth quarter, just on 2 plays, he had over 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if you had J.R. Garton on your fantasy team,
you'd be doing pretty
this
good.
was a good week to have him, especially with Trevor Spates being on the bye. So.
Right.
I think this might be the one week where Trevor Spates isn't the best running back in the Valley. So. Anyways, anything else from 32-6A? I mean, let's touch on the game that was on Thursday. This was Mario Aguirre's R31-5A report. This was his lock of the week, Harlingen South over Brownsville Rivera. Harlingen South gets the win big there. I forget what the score was. The score
42-8.
42-8, yep. Rivera, I know that they went up 3 deep in the playoffs last year, made that run, but it looks like things aren't going to work out for them this year. Granted, they're young, though, from what I understand. They had a lot of seniors graduate, so just a rebuilding year for them. So, but congrats to Harlingen South on the win. Anything else from that district?
That was the game. My lock of the week was in there, and that was today. And
that was today. Hannah beat Lopez.
Brownsville Hannah beats Lopez, yeah.
Okay.
So not really much to say about that. I haven't heard much about how the game went, but there you go.
Well, enough of 32-6A then, I suppose. Let's move on to 31-5A, and then we'll tackle some things here in this district. Speaking of lock of the weeks, my lock of the week was Edinburgh Vela over over Valley View. Forget the score, but they did win by a substantial margin there. So I get props to me. You have a question, Sol?
And while you're on that subject, people have been asking on Periscope about the 31-5A playoff picture.
Ooh,
okay.
This is tough.
I'll have to pull up the standings from last week just to refresh
It
myself.
seems like Vela has the inside track, just because they've already beat Sherryland. They beat Sherryland Pioneer. They beat Valley View. They beat. So who's left? They got to play Mission Vets, which is the last regular season game for them. But still, I just think
they play Pioneer this week.
They played Pioneer. Vela.
I'm sorry.
They played Pioneer last week.
Vela, I'm not sure, but I mean they've been the strongest team all season, so you have to feel good about them.
Right, yeah, at least in 5A for the Valley. So I don't think Vela's going to lose a game until the playoffs. I think they're going to run the table regular season wise.
The one that really threw everything off here was the Sherryland loss to Roma. I don't know how many people saw that coming, especially because Roma still didn't have Ramon Espinoza in this game. So I don't think any of us were even close to picking that. I think we had kind of written Roma off because Sherryland had looked really good at times, but that Roma defense that we've talked about before, I guess
it's good. It's
gotta
good. I
respect
mean,
that guy.
yeah, we talked about Roma's defense even though they lost to Edinburgh Vella 28-7. You know, that was the first time Vella had been limited under 30 points all season. And I know 30 points sounds a lot, but Vella's dropped 70 points this season, so they can score.
Right.
And they can put up a lot of yardage. But Roma held them to like 250 yards offense. So I'm a believer in Roma's defense, even despite the loss of that Vella, and even more now after beating Sheridan. That's a hell of a win for the Gladiators there. So
right.
props
So
to them.
we had talked about how maybe their playoff hopes were a little bit in trouble, and I think this certainly gets them right back on track to potentially make a move forward if they can kind of take care of business here the rest of the way.
Right. In terms of Vella, they've got Rio Grande City next week. That's at home. They have a bye, and then they play Mission Vets at Tom Landry Stadium. And like I said, I don't think they lose the game until the playoffs.
Right. I mean, they're 4-0, so they could even lose one.
I still think, here's in my estimation, in no particular order off the top of my head, the teams in 31-5A in the playoffs, it's going to be Vella, Mission Vets, Sheridan, Roma, in one of those 4 teams in that order.
Right. I mean,
those 4 teams in that order.
Right now, Sheridan's in a little bit of a hole at 1 and 2, but they have every chance to get that game back because they still have to play Pioneer this week, and that's going to be a game that potentially could be for that 4th spot, and I would still think that Sheridan should be pretty substantially favored.
And they've still got to play Valley View too, right? And Rio Grande City?
I believe those games were in the latter half of their schedule, yeah.
Let me check here. I'm just looking at the schedule. But, I mean, yeah, the Roma games hurts them, but they got Pioneer, which, you know, that could be a trap game for them. And then they got Valley View, Rio Grande City.
Right.
So their district schedule is very front-loaded.
If they win the game against Pioneer, they'll probably finish 4 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in.
Yep.
You're in a good spot.
I know that Mission Vets is losing. They lost Diego Hernandez for the season. They get the win over Sheridan Pioneer, in a really close game. Props to Pioneer's defense. I know that I've been kind of labeled a Pioneer basher on this show. I don't bash Pioneer. I was always a bit skeptical of their undefeated run because they were beating on teams. Granted, they should be beating. I know they're improving, but I still think they're 1 year away from contending for a playoff spot. I said I didn't think they would win any of their last 4 games. Now, I love to be proven wrong. I would love to see a feel-good story like Pioneer. I just don't see it happening for them. But I think next year certainly wouldn't be able to count them out. So.
Right. So I got to figure out my computer's working incredibly slow. When does Pioneer play against Roma?
That's the very last game of the season.
Okay, so then that's looking like a game that could be a pretty interesting one. That's one that, to me, is going to be probably the playing game for 4th place. Because we like Vella, we like Mission Vets a decent amount, and we like Sheridan to sort of run the table here down the stretch. Yep. So it depends on the Sheridan versus Pioneer game this week, but my prediction would be that it comes down to Roma Pioneer.
Correct. Technically, the Pioneer Roma game is the last game of the season, but it's not on the last week of the season because Pioneer plays Roma, and they have a bye during week 11. So for all of you, that's at Roma. No, it's not. It's at Pioneer. I should say. Excuse me. That's at Pioneer. So. For Roma, they got to travel to Sheridan twice to play these Sheridan teams. But again, they beat Sheridan High. So I have a prediction for this Roma Sheridan Pioneer game. The final score, watch it be like 3-0. Just like an absolute.
It could be.
I wouldn't surprise me because both those defenses can play. So
right.
We'll see, though. It'll be interesting. But good question. Good question. We still got a ways to go with 31-5A, but I think Vella, Sheridan, and Roma and Mission Vets somewhere in that order is how that's going to work out. Anything else we want to talk about these games? Because we mentioned Vella beat Valley View. Sheridan High had the bye. No, they lost to Roma. Mission Vets beat Pioneer, and Rio Grande City had a bye. City had a bye.
So we can move it on.
Okay. We'll go and hop back into 6A.
Yeah, let's go to your district. Let's see what did you cover this week.
Actually, let's not do that real quick. We totally skipped Mercedes Ed Couch. We can't do that.
Right, that was a pretty big game.
That was a very big game. Let's talk about Mercedes Ed Couch. This was a big one. This has, Mercedes was kind of like Pioneer, and not in the fact that they're on the up and come. I mean, they are the defending district champions. They just had a lot of turnover last year. Not really sure how to gauge them in the early part of the season. But then last week they lose in a close contest to Donna High, and Donna High just wins on a last-second touchdown there. And then they come in here to Ed Couch. That game was at Mercedes. And Ed Couch was a team that was scoring lights out. They are one of the highest-scoring teams in the Valley. And again, Mercedes' defense looks stout, holds them to 14 points. And they win the game on a 49-yard field goal. That if you've seen the video, it was good enough. It wasn't just barely with the crossbar. hell of a kick for the Mercedes Tigers there. But what did you take away from this game? And granted, we weren't there.
Right.
32.5 writer Dennis Silva was there. But just looking at the stats and reading the game, what did you think about this one?
Well, I think one thing that really jumped out to me was how heated the rivalry was and has been. Yeah. You can see that. Just click on Twitter real quick, and I'm sure there's a lot.
No, don't do that. Don't click on Twitter.
Well, there's certainly a lot going back and forth if you're into that sort of thing. So I think, and Dennis talked about how there was like an increased police presence at this game, and they wouldn't allow the teams on the field at the same time.
Yeah, post game they wouldn't allow the teams on the same.
So that's everything you really need to know about the stakes in this one, on top of how it plays into the district title chase. And we saw the two teams just kind of go back and forth and play as even as we thought they might, and really play a good game. You look at the stats, the total yardage is kind of almost dead even. They both go without a turnover. I mean, it's things where they just played neck and neck, and it just came down to, at the end of the game, Mercedes is in position to kick the field goal, and the kid nails it. I mean, that's hardly a gimme field goal.
Yeah, 49 yards, yeah.
And he made it look easy. Like,
yeah, he did.
Clean by a long shot.
And if you're Ed Couch, I mean, what are you going to do in that situation? I mean, your defense, forces the Mercedes into a 49-yard field goal, which, like you said, is no gimme.
Right, at the buzzer.
Yeah, and the kid just made a hell of a play. So, I mean, props to what's his name?
Aldo Garcia.
Aldo Garcia. Props to him. Is he Player of the Week?
That's an interesting question.
I mean, 42. It says here 42 yards.
No, it was 49.
Was it 49?
I saw the video. Yeah, it's 49.
Okay.
But I think we can look at some of the other guys who had a big game. I mean, Andrew Segura for Ed Couch played pretty well. Had 17 carries for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I'm totally on the Zach Gomez bandwagon now. The sophomore quarterback for Mercedes.
You like him?
I like him. From just by looking at the stats I've seen from him these last couple of weeks, he's played really well. In this game, he was 8 of 15 for 152 yards and a touchdown. Again, he's only a sophomore, so you give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not lighting it up, but again,
he's got a lot of room to grow.
He's got a lot of room to grow, and even against Donna last week, he completed about 50% of his passes for about similar numbers, 100-some yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's really, really good for how young he is, and I'm totally on board the Zach Gomez bandwagon for sure.
I agree.
Anything else from this one, or want to move on?
No, we can move on. I don't know a whole lot more about this game than what we've already covered.
Well, I think, again, like we mentioned at the top of the show for 32-6A, all three of those teams had wins on each other. You got Donna beating Mercedes. Mercedes beats Ed Couch. Now, what if Ed Couch beats Donna at the end of the season at the very last game? I mean, again, I know that this district is really top-heavy with Ed Couch and Donna and Mercedes, but with these last 3 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see how things work out for these guys. So.
Right, and speaking of those teams elsewhere in this district, Donna High beat PSJ High 63-0. Really wasn't challenged there. And PSJ Southwest beat Donna North 40-0, and then Porter beat Pace 28-21.
Okay.
So there's your rundown.
There's your 32-5A. Now we want to move on to... It's a quiet week for your week. Let's not end on a quiet note. We'll end with my district, I guess. I'm being jealous. But before we do, we got a question. What is it, Sol?
People are asking how good do you think Donna is, and do you think they are the best team in that district?
Yeah, I do.
I think so. Well, what happened was early in the year, we had the Donna hype, and then they ended up losing a couple games.
Well, yeah, they started out the season 0-2. They lost to Brownsville Vets by 7, which doesn't look bad now. They lost to Donna. They lost to Weslaco,
which also doesn't look
which doesn't look bad as well. But since then, main thing is for them, it seems like they got healthy. And what impresses me most about Donna is every game, it seems like they have the 3 best offensive players on the field every game. And, that's such an advantage to have. Like I've said this before a million times, at the high school level, if you've got the best player, 9.5 times out of 10 you're going to win. And they've got 3 of the best offensive players in Amante Bowen, Edward Doherty, and Paul Guetta. So, they can score so quickly. And if Ed Couch was healthy, if they had Marco Aguinaldo and he wasn't hurt, I don't know. I think it'd be a toss-up, but with him being out, I think this is Donna's district.
And
right
as
now.
much as those guys kind of bring the flash on offense and they get all the numbers, that offensive line, there's a lot of nice things said about them. I know Troy Billman is a guy on there who's gotten a legitimate shot to play college football. So they have a lot going for them offensively, not just with the skill players who are obviously very talented and can run the ball a lot. And you know what? We get to see what their passing game can do if it gets put in a situation where they really need to lean on it. I don't know if that got shown against Weslaco at all, but I think in some of these games we've seen that they haven't had to throw the ball at all, and they've had some success doing that. So that's one thing that with some of these teams you start to question down the stretch, but right now their offense is clicking on all cylinders, and their defense, I know Dennis has said it's kind of, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's not too special. But I think even with that, being somewhat of a limitation, I would still say that this is a really good team that has a good shot to win this district.
Did you put Don in your top 10 last week?
I'm not 100% sure. I know I was at least... no, they were number 11.
Okay. I put them in my top 10. It came down to Mission Vets or Donna, and I went with Donna just because they were healthy.
They should be in this week.
Yeah, so I'm fully on board with the Donna bandwagon, at least for the rest of the season. Let's move on to 36A.
Correct.
Quiet week for your district. The Trevor Spates show is on a bye.
Right.
They're still undefeated. They're still doing Trevor Spates things with that team. But
exactly. Well, similarly to the Trevor Spates show, there was still another episode of the Josh McGowan show, which is becoming the newest thing over there. He had 223 yards and 4 touchdowns, and returned to kickoff for a touchdown, just to, a little added bonus there. And that was how they got the win against Juarez Lincoln, 56-35. This was a game where they probably let Juarez Lincoln get a little bit more than they wanted to, a lot of them. But 2 of those scores for Juarez Lincoln came on interception returns for a touchdown. And even though that's a kind of a mark against Caleb Youngblood, the quarterback from Mac High, he did bounce back and run in 2 scores and picked up 156 yards that way. So pretty good showing from McAllen High's offense, interceptions aside, and defensively did enough to keep Juarez Lincoln under wraps. So they're looking a little bit better. They're starting to round into form, I guess.
Quiet week for you, like I said, with Spates being off. But next week, we get to see the game that at the very beginning of the year we pegged as like the showdown in this district.
Right.
Doesn't have quite the implications because Mac High struggled, but still it's going to be fun to see Spates and McGowan, the 2 best running backs in this district, go at it. So we'll talk about that next week, though. We'll save that for the 6A preview podcast next week. Yeah. But that is something to keep keep in mind, I guess, if you look at the schedule.
I started with that game because it was the Thursday one, but I really think the most interesting result of the week to me was Mission High beating La Jolla High. We had talked about how La Jolla High, by beating Palmview and beating McAllen High back-to-back, looked like they were in line to get the 2nd seed now. And so then, of course, they come out and they lose to the winless team, to the 0-2 Mission High, because just in this district, not a lot seems to be.
Yeah, every week you never know what happens.
So, and it was 35-14. It was a pretty convincing win, and Mission had the advantage of coming off a bye week, and I think Coach Mario Pena was just preaching to his kids that, what's costing us games is our own mistakes. And he said that they finally played a complete game in this one. They had a sophomore, Rudy Trevino, step in at quarterback, and he threw a touchdown to the guy he was replacing, William Mariah. So that was a good connection for them. And on the ground, Juan Salazar scored twice and had a pretty big game. So that's the story for Mission. And then the other game here was La Jolla Palmview, who I hope those guys are still on the line. I know we had Ricky 956, and he brought a friend this week, another Palmview offensive lineman apparently. So hopefully they're still here to hear me give the quick rundown of this. I wasn't at the game, so I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that 55-31 for Palmview, and talking to Coach after the game, Coach Margarita Requeñas, he said they just really had to get back on track in this one after losing the week before, and it was a pretty close game going into the second half, but then Palmview's Damian Quintanilla recovered a Rose onside kick attempt and just found a lane and scored on that play. And that sort of opened the floodgates for them. They had stretched the lead to 55-17 or something like that pretty quickly before Rose scored a couple of times late to make it look a little bit closer than it was. So close game, then blowout, and then the final score ended up looking a little bit nicer than it could have been. So I think it's a really good showing for Palmview. Abel Torres and Misael Guerra both had pretty big games on the ground for them, I was told. Haven't seen the numbers on that yet. And then they said Luis Sanchez on defense made a lot of key tackles and also returned an interception for a score. So I mean, like I said, every week it's like I don't know what to make of these guys anymore.
So it's business as usual.
Right. But again, Palmview starting to look like they deserve to be in the playoffs almost assuredly. I don't think there's any way they're not one of the top 4 teams.
Another week, another batch of outcomes. A whole other week to kind of make playoff predictions. Aside from Memorial, who are the 3 teams in this district that are playoff teams right now?
Let's go with McAllen High, Palmview, and flip a coin for Roe or La Jolla High, I think. I know Mission is going to, Mission just beat La Jolla High, so it's hard to not give them any looks, but at the same time, I just have to see that for multiple weeks for them to really buy into it.
When does Roe play La Jolla High? Is that coming up?
That game should be soon. I know that. I don't think it.
Watch it be next week. Watch it be next week during that McAllen Memorial.
I think it should be 2 weeks. That's my understanding of when that game is. That could be a pretty good one. Although, again, they could end up just both making it, and it could end up not being a huge thing, because who knows how McAllen High is going to look week to week, right? So every game I'm going to say I have no idea what's going on, essentially. And we're just going to, and then we'll talk about it the next week, and hopefully I can try to add some perspective as we go along.
What do you want to know about 31-6A? I'll tell you.
So what did you cover this week? You got to cover 2 games.
I got to cover 2 games, but before we do talk about the 2 games that I covered, I want to mention the game I didn't get a chance to cover. That was Thursday. It was Edinburgh High versus PSA Memorial.
Right.
Edinburgh High Bobcats got their first win of the season in pretty convincing fashion over PSA Memorial, 28-7. They're now 1-6 on the season. If they didn't get this game, it looked like they were going to go winless, and so props to them. And with PSA Memorial, I mean,
they're in trouble.
Yeah, they're in trouble now. It looks like they're out to play spoiler the rest of the way. But probably just want to recognize the Bobcats and Coach Escobar.
Yeah, we talked
and
about.
they've done,
I don't know if you know any details of this game, but we talked about how maybe with PSA Memorial not being able to run the ball, it's just a different kind of matchup from what they're used to. So
that's what Coach Escobar for Edinburgh High said. He's like, we just played the pass really well. We geared up for the pass, and that's what we played. And they did a good job. And more impressive, especially for Edinburgh, is they've struggled in a lot of facets of the game this year. They don't get the numbers that they should get for a 6A school, but they scored in all three phases. They had 2 rushing touchdowns, they had a pick 6, and they scored on special teams. And looking at the numbers, on the surface, they average about 160 yards a game, which is dead last in the district. But over the last couple of weeks, the offense has been picking up. They had about almost 300 yards against Edinburgh North the week before, and it just seems like things are kind of clicking. And again, still things haven't gone the way they wanted to, but maybe I should have seen the positive signs kind of come into fruition against PSA Memorial.
I'm not going to say
no?
you should. I think it's all right to be surprised by this one, and that's coming from the guy who has no idea what's happening in this district. But I think you have every right to be surprised by this.
Either way, I want to recognize Edinburgh High for getting that win, because every team should at least feel the joys of victory at least once a season. So
absolutely.
Anyways, let's talk about the 2 games I did go to. I had one Thursday, one Friday, both at Cat Stadium there in Edinburgh, which is like.
Well, okay, so one was not close. Let's get that out of the way first.
One was not close. It was Weslaco High versus Edinburgh North. That was on Friday at Cat Stadium. That was 42-10. I was hoping maybe it'd be a bit closer of a game, and at the end of first quarter, it's Weslaco High 21-0.
I was going to say, I don't know if 42-10 does it justice. They scored like 5 times in 5 possessions, right?
Yeah. I think until they scored in every quarter until the fourth quarter. By then, Coach Tony Gurriel from Weslaco had the subs in. I think the only time they didn't score through their first 6 or 7 possessions was their last possession before halftime, and it was a kneel down. So. Weslaco is clicking right now.
And North just doesn't have the tools to stop them. We talked about last week how they're trying to get the defense together. And
Yep.
This is not the team to try to get stuff together against.
Yeah, Weslaco had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. They had a bye, and with Edinburgh North, like I've said, defensively they've given up a lot of big plays. And the very first play from Weslaco on scrimmage was an 82-yard touchdown run. Now that pretty much set the tone for the game from there. And it's like this, their defense gives up a lot of quick scores, and their offense doesn't necessarily have quite the dynamic playmaking that they wanted to have to keep up. So, but all that said, Edinburgh North, everything all the frustrations they've had, they are still in control of their own destiny here. They got 2 games left. They have a bye this week. They got to play PSA Memorial and Edinburgh Econ. They win both those games. They're in the playoffs.
Oh, they can do that.
Yep, they can do that. They can absolutely do that.
That's Edinburgh High you're talking about, not Edinburgh North, right?
Edinburgh North, excuse me. Did I say Edinburgh High?
You said Edinburgh North.
Yeah, Edinburgh North.
Edinburgh North plays Edinburgh.
Edinburgh North plays PSA Memorial, then Edinburgh Econ.
Gotcha.
They have a bye this week. So Edinburgh North, if they win out, despite all the frustrations that they've had to deal with, they're in the playoffs for the 4th straight year, which is a goal that they've had. So
an attainable one at that. I mean,
Yep.
PSA Memorial, and Economides, maybe.
Maybe we'll see. We'll talk about Econ here in a second. But with Weslaco, they're clicking on offense and defense. I think that they're the favorite right now to win the district. I just think from top to bottom, they've got athletes. They've got skilled athletes at every position. I think they're deep, especially at running back. I know last year, I wasn't here last year, but I know last year they had kind of like their bell cow running back that got a lot of yards for him. You remember his name? I forget.
For Weslaco?
Yeah.
Eric Guerrero?
Yeah, Eric Gonzalez, Eric Guerrero, something like that. Either way, he got over 2,000 yards rushing.
I've done that
I
like 3
understand.
times. I got the kid's name wrong. Gonzalez.
Eric Gonzalez, yeah. He had over 2,000 yards rushing last year, from what I understand, or close to that. This year, they've got 4 or 5 guys there. I asked Coach Gurriel, how does the depth help these running backs? He's like, they're always fresh. They're never hurt. And when they do, since they are fresh, when they do go out there, they're always hitting the holes super hard, and they're always running really fast. So, and again, I got to give props for Weslaco's defense. Jordan Nichols making plays once more. He had a pump block in this game. That guy's just always
a really good player.
He's really good. He's always in the right place at the right time. He's probably on the short list for Defensive Player of the Year in my book. So that guy's fantastic. So
yeah, good call. You were going to talk about the Economides PSA North game.
Oh yeah, that game was Thursday. This one was interesting because you had the best statistical offense versus the best statistical defense in this game, at least in 31-6A. And Econ looked like you picked Econ to win this game.
Yep, just another thing I got wrong.
But you weren't in the beginning. It looked like you weren't too far off. Tell me why you thought why you thought their chances were good in this one.
Just thought they would be able to control the clock, run the ball, and get enough stops on defense to give PSG North trouble.
That's exactly how the first quarter went. PSG North, they stalled on their first drive, and then on Econ's first drive, it was like 12 plays, 5 minutes, and they get a touchdown. And Saul was here at this game. He's sitting here in the back. He was there at this game, and they were, and lo and behold, Econ takes a 7-0 lead, and then it looks like they're about to go in for another score to be up 14-7. PSG North gets a touchdown on their next drive at 7-7. Econ is at the goal line, and then they're about to punch it in. Alan Arredondo is about to punch it in for a touchdown, and he's at the 1 yard line and he fumbles it. There's an unforced error. PSG North gets the ball. Econ ends up getting points because PSG North has to punt from their own end zone. It's a bad snap. The punter kneels down, his knee touches the ground, the ball's in his hand. So they end up getting 2 points there. But nonetheless, the minute that fumble happened, the whole tone of that offense changed. There were 3 fumbles here for Edinburgh Econ. 2 of them were in the red zone, and that just killed their drives. Because like I said, they killed clock, and they came in with nothing twice. And PSG Memorial, eventually, they just got things going offensively. They did as they always do. They had like 428 yards of offense, 31 points. Shouts to Barrios-Thomas. He changed his number.
That's your guy.
He's normally number 54. He's a linebacker for them. Changed his number to 93 because they moved him to tight end. And that was partly by design because PSG North was banged up coming into this game. Talked to Coach Pena. He's like, I knew we didn't have the speed to match up with their defense, so they just went as big as they could. They ran a double tight end set all night, and they just bullied their way. They bullied their way around all night, at least in the trenches. And every play, the guys in PSG North just got off the line a bit quicker than Econ kids did. And Barrios-Thomas was out there catching sweep passes. He had like 2 catches for like 29 yards, and that dude's tough to bring down. He's a big, thick kid, but he's fast, and he was just bouncing off kids. He was like a wrecking ball out there.
I enjoy how much you enjoy Barrios-Thomas.
Oh man,
it's nice.
He doesn't sound like a 5'4" running back.
Yeah, but he's huge, right?
Yeah,
200 pounds or something.
Oh, he's huge. And plus, with all the padding and the helmet, that guy, it's one kid can't bring him down. Everyone,
it takes a village.
You got to gang tackle that kid, and he's got I think he's got 8 touchdowns on the year, 9 touchdowns, and he only has like 120 yards rushing. Like he only sees the ball on like short and 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, or like goal line stands. He's like Saul and I have talked about this. He's like late stage career of Jerome Bettis in the NFL. Like Willie Parker got all the yards, but Jerome Bettis got all the touchdowns.
Does he get out there and block on other plays, or is he?
Oh no,
Does he have facial hair?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I imagine he would look like a 70s football player, like facial hair like a
I don't know if he can grow a beard, but he's got some stubble. I need to ask him. But no, Barrios-Thomas, just by the name, it's not his real name. I won't tell you what his real name is, but
does he not want that out there?
He doesn't want it out there, and while he's
that's hilarious.
Since he's balling out, I won't ruin the surprise. Now, if he has a game where he poops the bed and has like 4 fumbles, then it's getting him spilling the beans.
I hope his real name is like Tiger, just a different animal.
But no, in this game, there were all kinds of cool names in this game. You got you got Barrios-Thomas on PSG North.
Right.
You got Thor Hernandez, PSG North.
Okay.
On Edinburgh Econ, you got Boney Rios, who, if you translate his name to English, it means Boney Rivers. What a badass name that is. You got Roy Falcon on Econ.
Roy Falcon.
There's another one I'm totally forgetting.
And there was 2 Sauls in the game too.
There's 2 Sauls.
There you go.
There's another one for Econ I'm missing. Either way, this game, aside from just the good game that it was, in terms of me learning things about this team, yeah, just the names, man. Just hearing the name Boney Rivers just called over a PA, or Barrios-Thomas called over PA. LOL, bro.
Good stuff.
Anything else you want to talk about?
I would like to talk about the small school games quickly because I think there was a big one this week. Oh, we got a question?
Just real quick before you move on, somebody wanted to know how Weslaco High stacks up against Weslaco East.
That's the question.
That's the question. That's the question. With both teams are undefeated in district right now. Weslaco East had a bye. With Weslaco East, it's really tough because Mike Burgett's never. He answers your questions without. The
man speaks in riddles.
He's honest without telling you anything. It's really weird because he plays it so close to the chest. I will say this: Weslaco East is probably the only team that can beat Weslaco this year, just because, in terms of speed, both teams match up so well. Emilio Tame and Cedar Rojas for Weslaco East; those guys are lightning quick in the open field. It's all gonna be about Weslaco East's offensive speed versus Weslaco's defensive speed, and what they can do. That's at least right now. Again, we still are 3 weeks away from that game. But at the very beginning of the district season, I said Weslaco is going undefeated in district. I still stand by that because in the last 3 games, I think they've outscored opponents something like 170 to like 30 something. They're just completely taking care of business in these games.
I was just going to say, outside review, I think they have the better resume and have been more dominant against similar opponents.
Yeah, against similar opponents. But again, I wouldn't be in those rivalry games. You never know. You never know what happens. So that is something. As of right now, I would favor Weslaco High. But Weslaco East is right there. That's not a gimme for either team either way. So.
Yeah.
But you said you wanted to talk on the small school. Let's talk on the small schools.
The one that jumps out to me is Rio Hondo and Port Isabel. Those are 2 teams with strong records.
Yeah, Rio Hondo's good. Rio
Hondo got the win in this one, 20-7.
Yep.
And I think, looking at the stats, neither team had more than 200 yards of offense. The difference was that Port Isabel turned it over 4 times, and Rio Hondo didn't. And I think that was probably what came up to cost them, especially considering Rio Hondo returned an interception 90 yards for a touchdown.
Raymondville gets the win over West Oso, 48-20. Lyford beats San Diego. Falfurrias beats Santa Rosa. Hidalgo loses to La Feria, 52-21. This game isn't on the schedule that I see in front of me, but I know that Progresso did lose to Orange Grove. It was a shutout. So
and Brownsville St. Joseph beat.
Brownsville St. Joseph. That was a shutout. It was like 48-0, 55-0. So props to them as well.
Quite the resume for Brownsville St. Joseph so far this year.
Woo!
Indeed.
Are we done?
I think so.
We did it.
Did you guys mention Roma Sharyland?
Yep.
No, Mario. We went the whole show. We didn't talk about Roma
Sharyland
Sharyland.
now.
Yeah, because it's the end of the show. No, we talked about your district. We talked about.
Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Roma's defense is good.
Did we mention that Mario came in?
Coach.
No, we didn't. We didn't mention Roma. you said that Mario might make a guest appearance.
He just showed up.
And halfway through, right after we finished talking about Roma, here he comes.
One, we've been pronouncing Haberger's last name wrong. It's Habecker.
It's going to be hard to get adjusted.
Habecker?
Habecker, yeah.
Huh.
Going to be tough to adjust to that. I'm not going to lie to you.
Secondly, I'm surprised that. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised. They did their I would say their overall tone wasn't that they were surprised after winning, which I think most people.
If they're not, they're the only ones who aren't.
Yeah, because I think we all picked Sharyland in that game.
Yeah.
And what's most impressive is that Roma played without Ramon Espinosa.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
No timetable for him yet, but they beat Sharyland, who came within a point of beating Vela, and yet Roma beats and has enough offense with their kicker punter, three for three, field goals and a point after attempt.
Yep. That might be if Sharyland beats
Pioneer. In the top 10, sorry.
Yeah, if Sharyland beats Pioneer next week, I mean that win over Sharyland for Roma might just be enough to get them a playoff spot. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
We're 3 minutes away from Pioneer beating Mission Vets.
That's true.
This game that surprised a lot of us.
Yeah, and
I don't think we even talked about Pioneer Mission Vets much, actually.
It was a defensive. Well, you were there at that game, so you tell us about it real quick.
Well, I would say Landry Gilpin looked a little bit shaky. I think he
looked like a freshman, right?
Yeah, he tried to do a little too much on his feet. Just Coach Gilpin said afterward that Landry will recognize pretty quickly that he can't just dance around the field and expect things to happen. Like the first game of Word, the team wasn't really ready for him, but now after having scouted him for a half and some change, they kind of had a feeling for what he might do. Still had a good night passing. I think he
completed 18 of 35 passes for 198 yards and ran 21 times for 145 yards. Scored 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns within the last 3 minutes of the game. I think the first drive was like 8 plays in a minute and a half, and the second one I think they blocked a punt, and then 2 plays later they scored off like one of his passes that was like for 20, 30 yards.
That would have been a huge upset for Pioneer, but we'll see if they can. They'll have another shot next week to throw another big one.
Pioneer playing with their 4th string quarterback.
Down to 4th string now. Poor guys.
Yeah.
What happened to the kid who was in there?
Their starter, Alejandro Ramirez, he hurt his knee, I think, midway through the 3rd quarter. Played with their 4th stringer, who was the freshman, who was on the JV team. They brought him up the previous game. Big kid, big freshman. Didn't complete anything until his last pass. I think it was like 0 for 7. Then he completed the last one. Was okay on his feet, but I mean, I don't think he was expecting to play. I didn't expect him to play because I mean, he's their 4th guy, and they still had a couple other quarterbacks that I thought would get a look. But he has a knee injury, was on crutches the rest of the game, and TBD.
So there you go. You guys got your dose of Mario. Are you happy, listeners?
They better be, because it's the end of the show.
Right.
Anyways, we appreciate you checking this out, whether it be the podcast or the Periscope or YouTube, whatever it is. Find RGV Sports on Facebook. It's RGVSports.com. On Twitter, at RGV Sports. Greg, where can the good people find you?
At Greg Luca.
You can find me at Jon R. Mario.
You can find me at London's in 10 minutes.
There
Saul,
you go.
where can people find you?
At Saul_monitor.
And we should mention, Saul has a column out in today's issue of The Monitor and on themonitor.com regarding concussions in high school football. Something that's kind of a big deal in case you live under a rock somewhere. So,
Truth.
Yep, so look for that as well. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week getting ready for RGV Week 9. Until then, take care of yourself, folks. Thank you.
Peace out.
I thought concussions was a myth like a global warming. I think it was real.
Interesting take.
Couple